just joined in, and I'll share something with you all. Is this being recorded? Okay. Anyway, one of the du'as I made, honestly, for about a year, after just being in the company of a blessed Sheik that I was in, is I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put me in the company of righteous people, but also at the service of those that are serving our ummah. My Sheikh from West Africa feels that the main crisis of the ummah is one of knowledge, is that people are not getting accurate knowledge, information about our deen, and much of our suffering is due to our ignorance of our religion, of our Lord, of the beauty of our religion, and we're being attacked everywhere. So what led into me joining Seekers Guidance and then looking at what we call the Islamic Scholars Fund, which we have a small short brochure, is a scholarship that supports, or a fund that supports students of knowledge. As mashallah, I didn't myself realize, but Seekers Guidance have been supporting a lot of people throughout the entire world. And the main focus of it is to help our future ummah have scholars and qualified people to be teaching in different communities. At times there were scholars unable to teach, being displaced from countries like Syria into situations that they lost their jobs, they lost their situation. These are noble scholars, immense scholars. And we know that the bounty or the merit of a scholar over normal people, Prophet ﷺ said that the fadl or the virtue of a scholar over a regular person is like my virtue over the least of you. And in another hadith he said, Inna al-ulama warathatul anbiya. The ulama are the inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ. They don't, because prophets don't leave behind dirham and money, but they inherit not just outward knowledge, but inward knowledge too. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. It is only the ulama who have real fear and awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our dear Sheikh, who is very humble, makes his jokes, but this is a very, mashallah, respected brother of ours who's our Sheikh. That's out of his humbleness, right? And he's at the service of all these different ulama, people that are studying in different continents, different areas, both teachers and people who, if the fund didn't support, they would not be seeking knowledge. Or sometimes sisters who are taking care of children, husbands fund that otherwise wouldn't support, and mashallah, without mentioning, they've been doing this amazing service for a long time. So it is zakat, it's qualified to receive zakat as well. So keep this in mind. As Sheikh Faraz, before we came here, we do this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we're all tied into one great ummah, and you're part of that. We're all one ummah. There's no, this person is this sect, this group. We're people of La ilaha illallah. Our Lord is Allah, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we're very happy, we're pleased, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, inshallah, share in this. If you can become a monthly donor of either Seekers Guidance, these are two different things, Seekers Guidance that is spreading knowledge. All the classes on Seekers Guidance that they have is all free. It's called Knowledge Without Barriers. It's something that the ulamas told Sheikh Faraz to teach without charging people. And they had, we had just around 80,000 people who signed on for classes last year or semester? Last year. And people like myself have taken classes. We benefited, and like myself for many years, over a decade, whenever you need reliable service of questions, answers, you can go to Seekers, you can search any type of question, you'll find, mashallah, reliable, relevant answers to problems and issues that we may have, whether it's about worship or mu'amalat in our service of life and our dealings with others, marriage, divorce, etc. And this little brochure, we'll pass it out. We're not asking for money, but we're asking, make dua, help any way that you can. $5, $10. And I'll tell you one thing that my Sheikh told me, our beloved Sheikh Salih from West Africa, he said, whenever you get an opportunity to help where there's knowledge. Why? Because every time you share in a good, you're sharing everything they're doing, right? So when you assist the people of knowledge, we don't realize, but seeking knowledge has way more greater merit than anything else. Prophet said, whoever takes on the path to seek knowledge, Allah will ease his path onto paradise. Every moment that they go to spend knowledge, studying, you are inshallah going to get that reward. Whether it's by $5, $10, $100, and people have zakat, they don't know where to send it as well. but we should support the people of knowledge. And there's a narration about Sayyidah Aisha said, when you have choices, support the people of knowledge, because they're going to give life to our deen. Our deen in the very beginning of Islam started with a certain nur that Allah brought to the Prophet ﷺ, to the companions, a light, a knowledge, a determination, and in our time it's died off. But it will only be revived by what revived the first generation, with knowledge, with spreading of this and having care. And unlike other initiatives, this is a global initiative. You know, this fund is helping scholars throughout North America, parts of Canada, and inshallah we want to expand this. We want to expand this to where we're going to inshallah spread knowledge to every corner, and in many communities who seek assistance, workshops, guidance, we want to be able to provide those kind of services, and this will be more enduring and long lasting inshallah. Make dua, may Allah include you all of being in the service of the great scholars of our religion and the people of knowledge. By it we revive and help the ummah. These are all people that need our assistance and need our guidance. So we're not out for that, but we wanted to, inshallah, pass that out. If you cannot help, you can spread to others and ask others, inshallah. Yes?
I was going to say, if you don't have a lot of wealth yourself, if you have family or friends, share it with them. This is like the best place for this account.
Jazakumullah. So we'll do a Q&A, inshallah. I'm just sitting next to the Sheikh to look nice, but inshallah he'll be answering most of your questions, and you should ask anything you like, because you have, mashallah, great resource, inshallah.
So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib said that ask questions, because 4 people benefit from questions. The person asking, but also the person answering benefits. Thirdly, other people listening benefit from the question. And the fourth, who would the fourth category of person be? So the person who asked the question benefits, the one answering benefits, the listener benefits, but there's a fourth category of person who benefits as well. Who would that be? So the fourth person
Everyone around
is the person who's not listening, but they're sort of sitting in, right? Because they may be like tuning out, right? But then you ask a question, they're like, hey, I wonder what that's all about. And they weren't listening, but they catch the question or they catch the answer and they end up benefiting. So it's a good way of gaining benefit. So inshallah there's an opportunity to ask. So who'd like to start us off? Any one of the sisters, inshallah?
I have more than 100 days of Ramadan, fast to make up.
Yeah.
So what's the process of that?
Yeah, so if one has many fasts to make up, the first thing is that in making up missed fasts is the most important thing with any debt. And this is a debt to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like our missed fasts or missed prayers. The most important thing is to make the resolve to make them up. Number one. With any debt, and the same thing applies if you owe, let's say, some random brother Dawood got married and he gave $100,000 and he borrowed $100,000 to give as mahar. Let's just say. But then he wasn't making that much money, right? So he owes money, but he's afraid. What if I die without paying this back? You're considered to have fulfilled your debt with respect to the hereafter if, number one, you have the resolve to make it up. And you make the commitment to make it up. And number two, you have an active plan of making it up. As your circumstances allow. As your circumstances allow. If you have those two things, then you should have full hope that were you to die, may Allah grant you and all of us long life, were you to die, you were clearing your debt. And you would be counted, people are resurrected according to their intentions. right? Their intentions. If the intentions were real, right? That you had the commitment and you were taking the means, right? And the sign of taking it, that you do the best you can. Now, different people are different, right? Like, there's some people who are able to fast through pregnancy, through childbirth. One of the toughest people I know alive, personally, is my wife. But in pregnancy, she wasn't able to keep like hardly any fasts. I don't think any. And through nursing, she wasn't able to fast. We had 3 kids, she had like big number. You keep track of it. You keep track of it, have the resolve to make it up, and you do what you can. But also, you need to know that Allah does not make us responsible for more than we're able. So if you are able, do what you can. But sometimes it's tough, especially when the kids are small, etc. You don't take on more than you can comfortably handle. Because the scholars say that, the hadith that the merciful are shown mercy by the all-merciful. Be merciful to those on earth, and the Lord of the heavens will be merciful to you. Who's the first person you have to be merciful to? Yourself, right? Sometimes we try to be nice to our parents, etc. But mercy to yourself is not like give your nafs what it wants, right? But to be merciful to yourself, like don't overburden yourself, right? And so that's the key thing. It's useful to it's actually a religious duty to keep a living will, right? Where we keep track of, like if I were to die, all of us will, like, to be honest, like this is how my wealth will be distributed, but also these are the debts I owe, right? So a will, in a basic level, has 3 components. What will happen to your inheritance? Number 2, these are the debts I owe to people. Right? So you keep track of it, like if you borrowed money, etc., keep it in a living will. Right? It's not something small. You borrowed $5 from somebody, right? Inshallah, most of our friends will be such that if you borrowed $5, you forgot to pay it back, hopefully they'll forgive you, right? If you borrowed money from someone, whatever, you owe people some money. Number 2, the debts you owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In terms of missed prayers, missed fasts, unfulfilled hajj, whatever. So you keep track of that and make a habit just to keep, update that periodically. Keep that, in the documents folder or whatever, right? Tell that this is where I keep my living will. So that's, now in the Hanafi school, if you delay making up the fast to the next year, no expiation is due. In the Shafi'i school, expiation is due, but in the Hanafi school, it's not due. But even in the Shafi'i school, the expiation may be due, but if you had an excuse to delay making up the fast, like pregnancy or nursing or other health conditions, then you do pay the expiation, but there's no sin in delaying it when there's an excuse. Go ahead.
There's a very related thing with pregnancy and nursing cycles, which never ends sometimes, or at least like the first few years for ones like having kids. Like different, also having different schools of thought, like regarding that maybe you give the money like the fidya and that's it and so on. Like when you face these schools of thought and, for example, the wife decides to go for that fidya thing and you don't think are very comfortable with that because you think it needs fidya and making it up. So like, what is the situation?
Yeah, so there are things that are differed upon with respect to the rulings related to certain matters. One thing is that ultimately, right, each person is morally responsible for themselves, right? As within the household, what is our duty? In general, our duty with respect to others is at 2 levels. On matters that are agreed upon, right, that there's no legitimate difference of opinion within mainstream Islamic scholarship. Within the 4 schools, it's outside of ijma', it's outside of consensus. That's where commanding the good and forbidding the wrong applies. Someone says, I was reading Quran, I only found 4 prayers. You got it wrong. That's not khilaf, right? That is just error. That's khata, right? So something like someone's doing that, the principles of commanding the good and forbidding the wrong apply. Someone's husband says, the way I understand it, if Fajr is early, you can just pray when you get up. You know, like that. But there the principles of commanding the good and forbidding the wrong apply. Once you've commanded the good, you don't have to do ijbar. You know, the husband or the wife don't have wilayat ijbar. You cannot force the other party. That's number one. Number two is in the matters where there's difference of opinion, the second duty is nasiha, is advice. But then advice is non-binding, like you encourage them. But in this, the ulama say that the people least likely to listen to you are your own family. Right? That just applies across the board. Right? One of my own teachers, Sheik Muhammad Jum'ah, I had a bit of a scare because one of his friends messaged me, and I was in South Africa. Got this message, and oh my God, it said sad news. It was in Arabic, sad news. انتقل إلى رحمة ربه. So that Sheikh Muhammad Jum'ah passed away. So I told the brothers, showed them the pictures. I was like so sad. I hadn't been in touch with him for a while because he's in Damascus still. It's dangerous to contact him. I hadn't contacted him for years. Half an hour later, I get a message. Oh, we got it wrong. He's alive. We're just sick. I was like, oh, alhamdulillah. So Sheikh Muhammad Jum'ah, very respected faqih in Damascus, senior teacher at one of the main seminaries in Damascus, said, the only person who never listens to me is my wife. Like if he sneezed, he'd say, Alhamdulillah. He said, well, say Yarhamukallah. He said, that's between strangers. There's no hadith that the wife has to say it if the husband does it. He said, no, but it's general. I said, what's your proof it's general? So he'd explain the usul principle. Said, okay, that applies in general to people, but where is there a single hadith that the Rasulullah said, if the husband sneezes, the wife has to say, Yarhamukallah. There isn't. Other things like that. Like he said, if you come home, say Assalamu alaikum. So that's between strangers. You're always at home. And he's, of course, not always at home, but so you just have to let people be sometimes, right? One of the useful things when it comes to advice, both commanding the good and advice, Abu Talib al-Makki mentions this in Qut al-Qulub, that one of the ways you're considered to have corrected someone or advised someone is if you point them to reliable knowledge. And sometimes that's very useful in family, because one of the unhealthy things in family is when family becomes like a court. You know, Your Honor, according to this article of the Constitution, you know, my wife has to, your wife, you have to do this. Wife says, according to our marriage contract, I don't have to do this. And it becomes like court, right? So why don't you pray your sunnah? Why don't you do tahajjud? Why, you know, it becomes quite. So one of the useful things is to, one's considered to discharge one's duty, especially when things are sensitive, to point them to reliable knowledge. And it can be a useful way, indirectly. The best advice is advice given as a shepherd, right? Where the person feels they're the one who's going to the advice. You facilitate the means. You know, the Prophet ﷺ said, each of you is a shepherd and each of you is responsible for their flock. So if you want to have a good married life, try to be a shepherd to your wife, try to be a shepherd to your husband. Like, it's co-shepherding, right? Now, the shepherd doesn't tell the sheep that I'm in control, but they are in control. Nobody, the intelligent shepherd doesn't discuss the plan with the sheep necessarily, right? But the shepherd doesn't force the sheep. Don't tell your husband he's a sheep, he's going to make some noise. I was blessed when I was in Damascus. I was in the old part of Damascus, in Midan, one of the old parts of Damascus, and next to the building I lived in was a building that was under construction. or allegedly under construction. Only one floor was built up. They started building it. In the 4 years I was there, nothing else was built. There's always construction apparently going on. But it didn't go up one floor in 4 years. But there's always all this mess around it. So, and there's still animals going down that road. Like donkeys, horses would go through there. Now, donkeys and horses don't like uncertainty. So you'd find when they came, the road would narrow. So they, and it gets rushed too. If you force an animal, I observe this a lot. Animals protest. Right? First protest is they make noise. Second protest is they express their displeasure. Right? By making a mess. Right? Now I observed that a little bit in Damascus, but it was moderate case of it. When I moved to Jordan, the neighborhood I was in, my next door neighbor was a Bedouin. Hajj Falih, from one of the Jordanian tribes, and an influential tribe. One of his nephews or cousins had been the minister of intelligence. So those strongest positions, head of mukhabarat, of the security services or intelligence, whatever. So while logically within the city of Amman, it was against the law to keep a herd of sheep. It's a residential city. But opposite our house, Hajj Falih kept a full herd of sheep. So we'd observe the same thing. That if sheep do sheepish things. Sheep jumps into a bush. Like I felt like having a conversation sometimes with the sheep. Yeah, sheep, what's up? Like literally, like you're grazing, jumps into the bush. Like, how are you gonna get out? Blah, blah. It was hilarious. So they try to get the sheep out, and it's good insight on life. Like that's what people do. Like there's little things to graze, but it found a whole bush, so it like jumped onto the bush. Like not jumped literally, but get stuck in the bush. That's what we do with our desires. So it's very interesting. Once in a while, I was tempted to have a conversation with the sheep, like, what are you up to, man? That'll hurt, right? But if you try to force the sheep, they'll do the same thing. Step one is they'll make noise. Step two, they'll express their displeasure. They'll create a mess. That happens in marriages. So what do you have to do? You have to nudge and encourage, right? You have to nudge and encourage. You can't force, because you're going to have a mess, and it's not worth it. And the best way, when the shepherd is in cruise control, where does the shepherd walk? Behind. Who set the direction of where the flock is going? The shepherd. But who's walking towards the direction? The sheep. Right? And that's how the ideal case both with parenting, and that for as much as the parenting allows, and as much as the marriage relationship allows, try to be in cruise control. It's least stressful. Right? Try to be in cruise control. The less you have to parent, but effectively they're going towards to where you want to go. Same in marriage. You facilitate the good. Right? Alhamdulillah, we have a 3-year life cycle for most advice I give to my wife. If I suggest something, first response will be no. If I argue, it'll take 4 years for her to be convinced. So convincing would take 3 years, maybe 4, but you can facilitate it. My wife works on Seekers as well. I told her, I think you need to get a new laptop. Nope. What we did instead, I just bought her one. I hid it, and she had this work closet, this clunky laptop. It was terrible. So I said, you should get an laptop. It's too expensive. My wife's very practical. So I just got her this nice iMac. I wanted to get one myself. I put it in there, and I left home actually. More like I left home. I put it in there, plugged everything in. Because initially she said, "Why did you get it?" This time, she came back and she said, Thank you, Abuji. Yeah. So sometimes you have to figure out how to win the argument, right? So, same thing, right? Like you facilitate the means, right? And sometimes you have to play the long game. Like there's something you don't like. If you can't do something directly and immediately, do it gradually. But, you know, like, so for example, with the issue of making up missed fasts, most of those who talk about ijma' relate, because the explicit hadiths of the hadith of Sayyidah Aisha and others, that we used to be commanded to make up the fasts that we missed, like during pregnancy or during their period, but not the prayers missed during menstruation. So there are some modern opinions that you don't have to make up, like if you give the fidya, you don't have to make up the fast. That's outside the position of all four schools of Sunni Islam, and rather a number of the, Ibn al-Munzir and Imam al-Nawawi and a number of others who've talked about al-ijma', like al-Iraqi and Tarh al-Tathrib, and others, they all relate ijma' that missed fasts have to be made up, right? Both from pregnancy and also from one's period. But sometimes that is where you want the person to get to, but sometimes you have to treat the underlying cause, right? That the problem isn't whether they're taking this opinion or not. We realize that, okay, maybe there's an issue with the way someone's approaching the religion. Same thing applies with a husband. You can argue about them with every specific thing. Sometimes what one does, don't argue the issue, connect them with good company. You have a friend whose spouse is also religious, they're of religious understanding, start inviting them over. And wife doesn't want to cook, order food. But you connect them. And one of the aims is you connect with the right kind of company. This will address those issues. So it's being indirect is best for Allahu A'lam. Any other questions from over here?
I have it in the paper, but I can say it out.
Good.
So I started working recently, and I wanted to know some of the best practices while working because I've been a student for now. So how to keep maintaining the best kind of productivity while fasting in the workplace, and also how to keep yourself following, being in the remembrance of Allah,
Yeah.
while being productive for the people.
Yeah, so how to be productive like religiously productive at work.
Yeah.
One thing is, the first thing is to treat one's work as worship. How? With intention. Right? If you look at the verses of light from Surah An-Nur, right, the 24th surah, starting around verse 33 or so, on bad numbers, there's a number, it's called the verse of light, but it's a series of verses. So it describes, the verse of light describes the heart of the believer and the reality of faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as being a light in the heart, right? And talks about character and so on. And where is that light found? In houses that Allah has raised, where accomplished ones, and rijal does not refer to gender. And rijal refers to those who are characterized by virtue, by virtuous ones, right? Whom neither, where Allah is glorified by morning and night, by virtuous ones, and what is their characteristic? لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله. Whom neither trade nor transaction, and neither work nor its responsibilities, busy away from remembrance of Allah or establishing prayer. So it is part of our worldly duty to earn a living, etc. But what we should strive for is, how do we approach our work such that it does not busy us away from our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's three things that are explicitly understood from the verse itself. One is that not being busied away from the remembrance of Allah entails that one approaches the work with intention for the sake of Allah. So every day, do not leave home to go to work except by renewing an intention of seeking the pleasure of Allah. I'm going to seek the pleasure of Allah today through my work. And think about how you're going to do it. So you renew your intention. How? Any work that you do benefits people actually or potentially. What's your line of work?
I work in a health tech startup,
Yeah.
building software.
A health tech startup. Hopefully it's not to ruin people's health.
Of course not.
Yeah. So that's a very noble thing, right? No, very noble thing. So go daily. Don't just say, oh, I got to show up to work. No. As a believer, we go to work. I'm heading out seeking the pleasure of Allah. How? By being of benefit to Allah's creation. By, and by helping people, preserve or maintain or improve their health. You're helping them in pursuing their worldly interest, in pursuing worldly good, right? So you go with that intention, to be of service to others, to uphold good character at work, and that's the type of calling to Allah just by, upholding the prophetic example, which is good character. By establishing, your religious duties at work, that I'm going to establish the prayer. That was just the most important thing. And sometimes we kid ourselves. I'm at work, so I don't have time to pray. No, you have time to take a break. You have time to check your social media feed. To give the 10 minutes, 15 minutes that you need for dhuhr, for example. We kid ourselves that I don't have time. I can just do the no. Arrange your work schedule such, and be focused where you need to be focused, so you can establish prayer well at work. And also the other things, that to be true and trustworthy, which are two of the essential qualities of the believer. That I'm going to be truthful in word and trustworthy in conduct, and many times there are little ethical dilemmas that arise at work. Sometimes just in our own practice, can I use the printer at work just to print out something for my mom? Okay. And it's not being trustworthy just to do, maybe a page or two is fine, but there's many personal ethical choices at work that there's a difference between, it's like I was in a meeting and Ustad Amjad messaged me, this amazing deal on a coffee machine. Sheik Faraz, get it for the hub. I was in a meeting, but I tuned out for 2 minutes because I went, clicked on the deal, I ordered it. They said, don't order it. I put a question mark. Why? It said fake. I lost $100 on that. But then I forgot where I ordered from. They didn't even send a confirmation email. They just took my money. The only way I could cancel that was to change my credit card number. It would be too much hassle. But it was a lesson for avoiding unnecessary distraction. But there's some things that are, so to be true and trustworthy at work. This is part of the amana with respect to work. And sometimes there's bigger dilemmas that, we try to pretend that in Canada we do things right and stuff, but there's all kinds of questionable things that happen. Then no, I'll be a person of principle. If something's wrong, I will not do it. With wisdom, but we neither harm nor accept harm, right? So those things. So you go with that with noble intentions, and the third is to be in remembrance of Allah, right? To choose a routine of dhikr that's easy on the tongue. The Prophet ﷺ said, keep your tongue moist with the remembrance of Allah. So, for example, the Prophet ﷺ encouraged saying Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. So, some people, and he said, it doesn't matter which of them you begin with. So you can do those in order, so Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. Some find it easier to just say La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Or you do one for a while, then the other. Right? And especially when we're sort of in cruise control at work, right? There's times that require full focus. We might not be able to engage in dhikr, but other times where you're coasting. So, stay in dhikr of Allah as much as you're able, right? And then have an active relationship with Allah at work. You're about to submit a report. Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there's some major decision that you have to make, should you join that project at work or not? Do istikhara, right? So have a devotional engagement with your work. Something good happens, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. If you messed up, make istighfar. Okay. Alhamdulillah. And it's good, for the believer to have time of introspection, right? Of muraqabah. At the end of the day, they say it's recommended at least twice a day to take oneself to account. So at the end of the day, it's good to look over the day and not just to be negative. Whatever good that took place during the day, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. And the places where you fell short, seek Allah's forgiveness and resolve to do better. So it's good before going to sleep, even a few moments. Just look over the day. Alhamdulillah, today, you did your prayers that day. It's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank Allah for it. Alhamdulillah, I got to visit my parents. Alhamdulillah. There's many good things, and it's important to have gratitude for the good. It's all gifts from Allah. Where you fell short. Like I got in trouble, but sometimes I don't answer my mother's call. I keep my phone on silent. I never turn it on. I missed my mother's phone call. Didn't call her back. So you realize, didn't call my mom today. So, you seek Allah's forgiveness and resolve to do better the next day. Call her back. And the same thing applies, they say, at the beginning of the day. Take yourself to account for, what you did after the night, and also to lay down, take yourself to account that what do I plan to do today? Briefly, right? Because, I'm going to be out shopping. It's Saturday, I'll be out shopping. So, when will I do Dhuhr? When will I do Asr? So you plan out your religious duties. Okay, it's Saturday, I have some free time. I'll visit parents. I'll go, I'm shopping, so might as well make it more beneficial. I'll invite a couple of my friends, so it's also keeping good company. So you plan out the good for your day. And those couple of minutes at the end of the day and the beginning of the day help us preserve the good and help us plan the good. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you.
Sheikh, you touched on istikhara. Sometimes it's istikhara when you have a project or you have something that you want to start, and you do istikhara and the thing passes, usually in a timely manner. But sometimes it's a difficulty or a situation in life that it's prolonged. So how often do you keep doing this istikhara? Or do you just do it once and then do tawakkul, or do you just keep...
No, so the istikhara is a dua for seeking the good, or seeking to make the better choice, right? But the istikhara is to ask Allah to help you make the right choice. Now Allah is merciful, sometimes He makes it very obvious what's the right choice. But the istikhara is not the dream dua. Right? Someone said, Sheikh, I have a problem with istikhara. Why? I prayed istikhara, I got married to him, he's awful. I said, did you find out about him? I said, no. Did you ask, did you meet, did you consider carefully, are you compatible? I said, no. Do you check if he's religious? No. Do you check if he has good character? No. But I did istikhara. I said, no. The istikhara is about trying to make the right choice and you're asking Allah for assistance in it. Right? But if you don't put your effort in, it's sort of damage control. Just be grateful he wasn't worse than what he is, right? So it's not a substitute for sound decision making, right? So for the istikhara is that when you incline to something, right? They say you do three things, right? You consider, you consult, and then But before hastening the decision, you consider yourself first, you consult, especially on important points and neglect the sunnah. Consult those relevant to consult. Then you consign the matter to Allah. Okay? And that's also from not rushing into decisions. Consign the matter to Allah. And then then you make the istikhara, and then you decide on the basis of what appears to be best for you, all things considered. And the istikhara gives us the decision-making framework. That if this matter is best for me in my worldly life and in my religion, short-term and long-term, then bless it for me and facilitate it for me.
But
And
so do you still ask for it while you're entrusting Allah?
Yeah.
You still like actively
Yeah.
ask for it?
But also, the end of the salat dua is very important, right? It said, وَقْدُرْ لِلْخَيْرَ حَيْثُ كَانَ, and destine the good for me wherever it may be. ثُمَّ رَضِّنِي بِهِ, then make me content with it. Because as you live, you realize that sometimes the best things that happen to us in life are disasters. Okay? Like one of the greatest blessings in my life is I got married to my wife. But before I did, I was at the age of 21, I thought I'm never gonna get married. Because from the age of 19, to a friend of mine who I'm still resentful of, I was 19, he was 18 when he wrote this article on the case for marrying young. He's an influential guy, like by personality. All of his friends, all of us got married either in university or within 1 year of graduating. I got married with 1 year left in university. He didn't get married till he was 29. All of us were really resentful because it's a struggle to get married in your university. Anyways, by the time I reached 21, I was convinced I'm not going to get married. Because at that time I was planning to go to Sudan to study. I was like, nobody's going to marry me. Who's going to marry me? I'm broke. My parents don't have much wealth. I'm going overseas to study. So no one from North America is going to marry me. Now if I'm going to Sudan, I didn't know where I was going to go to Sudan. But I like the idea of going to Sudan to study at that time. It says no one from one of the big cities, Khartoum or Durman, would get married to me. So be someone from a village. But even in the village, no one would agree to let me marry their young daughter. So you have to be someone older. And when you're 20, 21, I thought she should be like 35 or older. Something like that. Probably has like 15 kids, has 5 teeth left, you know? And so on other things that are not politically correct, right? Like, you know, weighing 350 pounds, right? Had bad breath, right? All this. So I made it really dramatic. I said, so no one's gonna marry me. Even she's probably gonna refuse. I would tell all my friends that. So a bunch of them took it upon themselves to find me someone to marry. And then someone proposed to me. Long story. I was engaged for 6 months. Where the person I was engaged I'd never met. It's from a good family. Sheikh Abdullah Idris from Toronto was going to fly with me to propose on my behalf. Everything seems up. But her parents were excited because they're like a religious family. And unusually for the mid-90s, they're keen for their daughter to marry someone who's going to serve the community by becoming a teacher of Islamic studies and so on. But then she said no. And I was like heartbroken, right? But you never know what's better for you. That person I was engaged to marry has had, not because of that. She decided not to marry. She married someone else, but she struggled with depression, has struggled with her faith, with her religious practice, this and that, for years. I found out because her younger brother became a student of mine and kept consulting about his sister. I never told him, I know your sister. And instead, so, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated for me to get married to my wife, who's like, yeah. So you never know where the good is. I was away for 10 years, like between 97 and 2007. When I returned, of my friends who got married, who benefited the most from their deen? and who struggled the most? The people who struggled the most were people who had quote unquote good marriages. Why? Because they became worldlings. Everything's fine in our lives. No, but you've just become a worldling. You used to have religious concern, you had religious concern, and you're serving the community in different ways. You're engaged in real good. Even in their careers, some of them, they're involved, like they're, doing something meaningful. Now I've got a, big home, increasingly big wife, and they're getting increasingly bigger because, just we're very happy. But religiously, they're shrinking, right? And some of the people who benefited the most were people who struggled. Now, we don't ask to struggle. Sometimes that's best. Right? There's one friend of my wife's, came back, she went through heck, because I boycotted her husband. Like, he was an old friend. I just keep my distance, because very sad story. But she said, Faraz, I'm really worried, because anytime I even think about asking Allah for something, He answers it. If I ever feel bad about someone, they have a disaster in there. I witnessed that too. Keep on her good side. Why? Because she was so heartbroken by what her husband did and so on, and she turned to Allah. And she started praying an hour or two every night. It's actually a concerned believer first. She was a transformed person. Okay? She's transformed. And you see it in her kids. MashaAllah, they're incredible. And that was much better for her than, quote unquote, a good man. You don't know what's better for you. Right? So that's, you have to leave the matter to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We seek the good, but never have the arrogance to think that you know what's better for you. Right? Wallahu a'lam. Next question.
So, there's a few questions. One is, what is the practical way to control anger and ego?
You read the question. You give the answer.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Controlling anger, and Sheikh will correct me inshallah add after, is that one of the things that helped me personally when I was learning about this is one of our teachers mentioned that there's a verse in the Quran in which every situation that you're in is in reality a test from Allah to see if you will be patient. The test is from Allah. There could be people in your life. Often I'm thinking that if it's relating to anger, we often get angry at people that have done things in our life that have upset us. This is generally how we get angry. And in that anger, these people that are causing us anger is in reality a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we study Aqidah enough, we know that Allah is the only real doer of everything. But there are individuals set up in our life that if you could see past that, you see that it's just a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even some great people like Sheikh Ahmed Bamba, when he was asked about the French colonials, he came, did so much harm to his country. But he never held a personal grudge or hatred against them. And when he was asked, he said, in reality, it's from Allah, everything we do. Either Allah brought them to remove the wrongs that we had done, or it's to raise our degrees. So alhamdulillah, internally, we don't necessarily keep everything in when people harm us. There's ways we should take care of it, and there's ways to redress it. But internally, when we get angry, the first situation that's happening is we're not seeing that this is a test from Allah. Second is that at the very onset, we have to realize that if we get angry, shaitan gets the better part of us. So a dua we should make right away is A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. If that doesn't work, then it's best to step away from the situation. You have to know yourself. If that simple dua can hold you, great. If it's something that has upset you to a degree that you know if you don't get away from this situation, if you don't walk off, something even worse will happen, right? Sometimes an altercation, sometimes you'll get a fight can break out that can really damage that relationship. So in that case, you would move. Some, of course, Sheikh would correct me that if you're standing, lay down, if that doesn't help, go make wudu. Often that's not what most of us will do, unfortunately. You're so angry, you're not going to make wudu, mashallah. Unless you can really do that. The best practical thing you can do is just say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, walk off, change the subject if you can. If you're a person that often gets angry, you should be picking up on those signs as early as possible so that you don't put yourself in that situation. There are individuals in all of our lives, we know who upset us. We know what situations, if we're in, would upset us even more. Avoid them, right? If you see somebody, oh, here it comes again. All right, I'm not going to bring that. You know, I respect you, but let's leave that conversation out. Because the minute you add something and they engage, try to disengage from that because it's not going to help. And ghadab, healthy anger for the sake of Allah is a good thing, right? Because at times we should be angry. When someone is wrong, we should be angry. The Prophet ﷺ only got angry for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People that wronged him, he never got angry for his own sake. But if rules were violated in our Sharia, he would get very angry, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People, that's why they say anger and love is for the sake of Allah. Not necessarily for our sake, because then the nafs is going to get the better part of us.
Beautiful.
Another question here is, how can we carve out time and space for good companionship?
That's an important question. That how do we carve out time for good companionship? The Prophet ﷺ said, as one of the hadiths in the 40 Nawawi, the Imam Nawawi's collection of 40 hadiths, that min husni Islam al-mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'ni. From the excellence of a person's Islam is to leave that which does not concern him, or that which does not concern them. So some of the early Muslims said, man ishtaghala bima la ya'nihi fatahu kathirun mimma ya'nihi. That if you busy yourself with the things that are not of concern to you, you'll miss out on many things that are of concern to you. Right? So practically, it helps everybody to do, the Prophet ﷺ told us to take ourselves to account. He said the smart person is the one who takes themselves to account and who acts for what comes after this life. While the fool, said the Prophet ﷺ, is the one who does whatever they feel like and then claims to have high hopes with Allah. So, and there's different ways to take oneself to account. We talked about before going to sleep, after waking up, like to review the day and to plan the day. That's one way of taking oneself to account. But the other is, once in a while, look at what's happening in your life. And a useful unit for that is your week. Like, where does your time go? Right? Where does your time go in your week? And you have 168 hours in the week. Now, some things you can't do a lot about. Sleep. Give your body its due. That's the sunnah. So if you sleep 6 hours, 7 hours, it's come in hadith that excess is not in sleep, excess is in wakefulness. Right? If you sleep 7 hours a day, that's 49 hours in the week. You still have, 119 hours? How many hours a week do you work? You guys here don't work as much as we do in Toronto, but what's the work week here? No, honestly.
40 hours.
40 hours. Even if you do 50 hours, including the commute, whatever, you still have how many hours in the week? 119 minus 50. 69. Let's say you do overtime. You work 60 hours a week. You still have 59 hours. Your worship. Even if you worship 2 hours a day, you still have 45 hours. How long does using the washroom take? How long does, no, seriously, it takes. Most of us, actually, if you did a review of it, you'd realize it's one of the things that shocked me in life, because it was true at the time, definitely. One of the very noble scholars in Toronto, Sheik Faisal Abdul Razak, he said if we reflected on our days and weeks, we'd realize that most of us spend more time in the toilet than we do reading the Book of Allah. I did a quick calculation, I was like, oh my goodness, that's true. Oops. Right? So just to see, right, that where does our time go? And you realize that even if you are genuinely working a lot, you take how much time do you need for food, how much time do you need for the toilet, how much, and then you still realize you have loads of time. It's just a delusion. Like we have a delusion of speed. And there's many psychological studies of this. And even in worldly terms, there's an excellent book by Carl Honoré called In Praise of Slow. And of course, our American friends are kind of slow themselves in a different way. So the American title is In Praise of Slowness. Because calling it In Praise of Slow was a little too subtle for those south of the border. But about this idea, this sense I'm rushed and so on. But then if you map that out, where do you begin? By carving out time. Right? There's something, begin with the things easiest to leave. Right? Because don't try to be a superhero. I'm going to cut out all social media, I'm going to cut out all of this. No. There's many habits we have that actually, like you sit in front of the TV and you flip channels. And many people do that. They just sit, once I was driving with my father was driving, I don't drive. My father doesn't talk a lot. We're passing by square one. My dad just said something that got my attention because he said, Faraz, beta, the potato came before the couch. Right? He said because the modern workplace is so fast-paced, a person comes back home drained like a potato that has been boiled. And what do you do with the potato? You put it on the couch. Like we sit in front of the couch, just flipping channels. Right? Or I know friends who say, I'm so busy, but then I'm on social media, you're on social media. You're posting, last 4 hours you've been posting stuff. I have some friends who allegedly do important things in life, but they're not getting very far in their projects. Because guess what, Bhaijan? Last 6 hours, you've been posting random things online that are not related to spreading benefit. And then you disclose that you watched all the season of Ertugrul in the last 4 months. I asked my kids to do the calculation, how many hours that is. That's ridiculous. But I don't have time. And one of them, I had to really swallow my pride. I've been trying to meet with him for weeks. I'm really busy. See, I really want to meet, but like so much going on. I see the social media feed, I'm like, what's going on? Like, what show aren't you watching? Right? And then he comes back to me and says, I'm feeling so lonely. No kidding. No kidding. Because like, we're old friends, you've not met with me. Who have you met with? Nobody. Not even going to his family every week. Right? So if you do an accounting, then you see, what are obvious things to, okay, you're really committed to the Maple Leafs. Major folly, because they're going to fall. But, I don't know. They crashed out, right? Anyone follow? Yeah, whatever. Like, I never fall. Like, I learned long ago. Don't bother because they're gonna fall sooner or later. Right? Usually sooner rather than later. Anyways, so you're attached to hockey. It's not haram. Okay. Prioritize the things that are either clearly harmful or easy to leave. Many of us, like, we develop silly habits. You're tired. What do? Get on the internet. Why? Just because. Resist the urge for those kind, don't drift. Things like that. Be purposeful. There's good uses for this. You want to get in touch with your friends? That's very good. Right? You want to be in touch with family? Have high intention. That's a type, but use it as a means of connecting. You connect with a friend, set up a time to meet with them. If they're somewhere else, connect with them, but then call them. The more real it is, the better. So if someone's away, don't just like send them a message, call them, because talking is better than texting. Visit them. My sister and I agreed, we're not going to chat on WhatsApp. We just get together. Right? It's much better. But avoid just drifting. Other areas. A lot of people like, my family does watch Ertugrul, and we have different, but I don't argue with my wife because she's always right. And it's very frustrating as a husband because like she just has, so they watch this Turkish show. I haven't seen a minute of it. My oldest son hadn't watched it at all, but he's now watching it too. But they claim it's wholesome. Allahu Alam. But I don't know. Yeah. I'll make fun of it indirectly, but so you want to do that, but things that are useless. Often people are watching something, I'm into season 3, and it's very disappointing. Why are you watching it? Right? Why are you watching it? Right? Because they're meant to be addictive. And the nature of all this kinds of media, whether it be there's a psychology behind it. The way it's created. Video games. Right? Someone said, I'm addicted. Someone told me last year, and I was shocked. So I started looking at it, because I used to play FIFA, the soccer game, when I was a kid. Said he spent last several years over $10,000 a year on FIFA. He's like a wealthy guy. I was a little offended because he said, is there any way I can support seekers? At that time, there's someone in need. I said, if you can help in this case, we had a scholar who said, I don't have money right now. But he's like us $10,000 on FIFA. Right? I said, do you enjoy it? I said, no. Right? And these are addictions. And you got to break those addictions. And there's ways to break addictions. There's a website called Unto the One. Sheik Keller. He has a series of articles, and he has some good articles on how to break some of these addictions. They're very, very useful. But get rid of sinful things and useless drains of your time. You'll find a lot more satisfaction. Just take your family to the park. Go visit your parents. You get free food, most likely, right? Yeah? But go with a sincere intention for Allah, even with the food. Of course, if you're married, this is for the married men. And sisters, don't hold this against your husbands. If your mother is 60 years old and your wife is 30 years old, at best your wife's probably been cooking for 10 years. Your mother's been cooking, she's from back home, for at least 45 years. Right? Who is more likely to be a better cook? Right? Answer is kind of obvious. Also, your mother is probably old school and took cooking seriously. Your wife probably doesn't take cooking so seriously, right? Your mother does it out of passion, your wife does it out of necessity. And it shows. Right? So when you go to freeload of your parents, which is good, they get very happy, freeload for Allah. How do you freeload for Allah? Gratitude. To Allah and gratitude to your parents. But intend gratitude. But don't show it too much. Never praise. They say, do you want to keep your mother happy and your wife happy? Never praise your mother in front of your wife, and never praise your wife in front of your mother. Keep that. Right? You want to thank your mother for the food? Tell her privately. Don't smile too much. Right? Don't tell. Like, if you're going to show, there's a theophany of joy on your face by eating the food you ate as a child, hold it in. Don't sit opposite your wife at your parents' home. I'm serious. I've witnessed this, right? I also discovered, through personal experience, that beware of mirrors. In my parents' living room, there's a mirror across the wall. I discovered that if I sit at a place where my wife can see me through the mirror, so I've arranged it so I sit on this side, my wife sits over there, such that she's facing away from the mirror, but she can't see me unless she turns towards me. But I try to stay very sober, right? Don't praise the food. I tell my mom when she goes into the kitchen, I'll whisper in her ear, "Mom, the food was awesome." So be careful, bismillah. But you got to take accounting of your time. If you cut out those chunks of time wasted and fill it in with good things, and be deliberate. Have people over. You're going to eat anyways. Feeding people is really simple, because which of us regularly misses both lunch and dinner? Right? So whichever meal you're going to have, try to eat with someone else. Simple. The food of one is enough for two, said the Prophet ﷺ. The food of two is enough for four. Right? And how do you host people? Serve what you normally eat, maybe a little bit better. That's it. Because the point isn't the food. And you don't have to invite people over food. Invite them for tea. Learn the art of creative snacking, right? Like have different things that you serve as snacks. Make good tea. Make good coffee. Right? But that's one of the critical ways of, both of spiritual wellness, but also of human wellness. Like people, like being alone. The Prophet ﷺ said, community is mercy. Al-jama'atu rahma wal-furqatu adab. And being alone is torment. Right? So don't do. There's no merit in being alone. Unless it's spiritual solitude. Unless it's spiritual. But the sign of spiritual solitude that you're alone actively in worship with resolve and enthusiasm. But even excessive worship, the Prophet said, only worship Allah, like in extra worship, when you feel the enthusiasm. When you get tired out, take a break. Right? But just being alone because I don't want to be around people, that's when you should force yourself to be around people. Right? This is your neighbors. Right? They're non-Muslim. What are they going to do? Like, sometimes you imagine they're drinking and fornicating the whole time. They're not. They're not. They're good people. Right? Like, go over. Right? One excuse is take some food. Honestly, you want to have good relations with people? Feed them. My mother was a bit bitter, and she said, if I didn't cook, none of you would visit me. I said, we would. Right? But that's a good wisdom. Feed the world, right? Inshallah. Other questions, inshallah?
Sayyidi, there's something I wanted to ask that I think would be benefit to others is, in our town, Santa Barbara, that's a very, very small town. One of the things that most of us committed to is that we will get together at least once a week on a Thursday night, where people that are religious or you just want to be around some good company, we made this time, we cook, eat together, pray together, we do some dhikr or reminders or just be with each other. Because when people are busy throughout the week, most people, and some in our community, if they don't get that weekly dose, they feel like they drift off. And I think one thing that, correct me if I'm wrong, in Vancouver, I come here a lot, people complain, people are distant, there's no really programs where masajid have a difference. You don't feel so homey going to the masjid. It doesn't have that feeling of companionship. You go pray, if you're lucky people say salam and then you go. Am I right? Everybody's nodding. So in a situation like that here, what would you advise? How should people do something like that? How can they start something like that?
Set routines, right? Like we found practically in our own, in our own family life, what we do is we just have a routine. Saturday nights are we visit my wife's family. Sunday evenings is for my family. And you sometimes have to carve out your time. So being like a Sheik type, there's always a request to speak locally, etc. I don't do, unless it's something really important. We have a guest scholar visiting our own project, whatever. I don't accept invitations for Saturday or Sunday night. So that's for family. So you set aside, you carve out time for family. That's one aspect. We also try on a weekly basis, we have a routine, to have someone over from our circle of friends. Just have some of the guys over, have coffee, grab breakfast with somebody. Eggs are remarkably simple to make, right? And you want to scramble eggs, like you literally, even if sometimes I invite people, I forget. And there's somebody at the door. Have them sit down, crack 5 eggs, an egg is hard to mess up. Put whatever in it, you're gonna have breakfast, feed a couple other people, right? But also as a community, I used to travel a lot in North America, like 40 weekends of the year for several years in a row. And one of the characteristics of successful communities where people were doing well is they would have either weekly or monthly family nights, right? where they'd get together for dinner. Some of them, they didn't even have any kind of educational aspect to it. But the community did well because people just gathered together.
This is for families.
Yeah, for families or individuals, right?
Yeah.
So Friday nights, they'd have, either a monthly dinner or a potluck. Because you're going to eat, other people are going to eat. Why not just eat together? It's better to connect that with some kind of religious learning, right? Or discussion. But that makes a big, big difference, right? And to make that a habit. If you can do it weekly, that's wonderful. If not, certainly monthly is very difficult not to do, right? So that's, we used to do that yearly. This year we're in transition to our new center, so we won't be doing that for Ramadan. But each Ramadan, we used to have nightly potluck iftars at the hub. So that anyone's on. Most families would come on the weekends and so on. There's a lot of single people, converts, a couple who just moved to Toronto, they don't have family, etc. But then other people would come with they just said, it's so much nicer to break fast with other people. There's a good friend of mine, he owns the first halal organic butcher in Canada, in North America, called Blossom Pure. They actually ship across Canada too. Halal organic. It was rated one of the top 5 butchers in the Greater Toronto area.
It's called what again?
Blossom Pure.
Blossom Pure.
Yeah. Mashallah. So he has like a tribe of kids. Brother Fahim. I don't.
Mashallah.
He'd always come with 3 to 5 children. Or 2 to 5 children on a flex schedule. Him and his wife and several kids.
Mashallah.
Right? They just have whatever they're going to have at home, they just bring it to the hub. Right? And those are good things to do. The social dimension of the religion is very, very important. Right? It's very, very, very important. And it's key to changing because the Prophet ﷺ said, a person will be on the religious way of their close companions. So look carefully as to whose company you keep. That's both cautioning about keeping harmful company, but also calling us to keep good company. So that's one of the most important things.
Next, a few more questions. City Dawood, how much time do we have?
Until 4:30, so
Okay.
we still have 20 minutes.
Okay, a couple more questions. Are there any special du'as in Ramadan that we should be making, i.e. to benefit us in the akhirah or throughout the year? And then there's some, maybe I'll add this, is there anything we can say to amplify the power of our du'a throughout Ramadan, throughout the year? Meaning, example, starting your du'a with Ya Rab, Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum, or repeating it 3 times. And third, because they're all connected, is it best to state your du'a in sujood during prayer? And if so, do you do it in the last, I'm assuming, rakat during the sujood?
That's a good question. In terms of du'a in Ramadan, one of the neglected sunnahs, Imam Nawawi mentions that one of the sunnahs is that when you break the fast, it is recommended to make du'a for the good of the whole ummah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course, there's 2 ummahs, right? There's the ummah who answered his call and the ummah to whom the call has been addressed, meaning all Allah's creation. So to make an encompassing dua when you break the fast, right? This is one recommended sunnah, right? So when you're either breaking the fast or right after you break the fast, for a moment make dua for the greatest, widest good for all people in general, but think about what are the biggest concerns for people, right? And there's so many things you can make dua for, right? So both religion, what do people need in their religion, in their life? We have concerns about the environment, and the believer is of wide concern. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the person of knowledge, the person on the path of prophetic knowledge, the birds in the sky and the fish in the ocean pray for the person seeking prophetic guidance. Why? Because someone who seeks prophetic guidance, seeks and is a means for the preservation of good for all of Allah's creation. So the birds in the sky, why? Because the birds in the sky are benefiting. The fish in the ocean are benefiting from that person. Right? And both their supplication and their concern. That's one of the things, to make dua for the good of all the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ. That's one. Number two, if one had a choice between two du'as, one is to read a dua from the Quran or the Sunnah. Number two is to make a heartfelt dua. Which is more pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Which one is more pleasing to Allah? The scholars are in near agreement that, of course, it's a false dichotomy, right? But that the heartfelt dua is of greater reward. Sometimes, because of course the Quranic du'as, the Sunnah du'as, are the best of du'as, but they do not preclude us making heartfelt du'as ourselves. And the Sahaba did so. Right? There are numerous books of dua. There's an amazing book by Imam al-Tabarani, one of the great Imams of Hadith, called Ad-Du'a al-Kabir, or Kitab al-Du'a al-Kabir, the larger collection of du'as, over 2,500 du'as, a lot of them of the Sahaba. And many places where the Prophet ﷺ taught several du'as, you have many companions who had their own du'as too, which not only they did themselves, but they transmitted. Right? They're heartfelt du'as. And they're asking for the same meanings that Allah and His Messenger called us to ask for. So that's also very important in Ramadan, to cultivate making heartfelt dua. For what? Consider, what is the greatest good I could ask for in my life? And ask for it. What's the greatest good I could ask for in my religion? And ask for it. Okay? So cultivate making dua, right? In Ramadan. Right? So don't just make it routine. But at the same time, one of the best things you can do is get a copy of Imam Nawawi's work, the Book of Remembrance. There is no book of prophetic supplications like Imam Nawawi's work, Kitab al-Adhkar. Many of the ulama said, "Bi'id dar washtari al-Adhkar." Sell your house if you must and buy Kitab al-Adhkar. It's not a big book, like it's a mid-sized work. It's available. Firdaus Books sells it. It's an amazing work. And each section, he shares some of the proper manners related to that action. Like how do you make dua with excellence? How do you visit the sick person? What are some of the manners of travel? And there are numerous du'as. Sometimes we make our worship stale. Why? What do we say in the prayer? We learned a couple of things in the prayer, and we just say the same thing again and again and again. How? So keep your worship fresh. How? Once in a while, learn a new du'a that you can say in the prayer. It doesn't necessarily have to be of the du'as related to the prayer. It's another du'a. Incorporate that in your bowing or in your prostration. Learn. There's incredible amount of du'as that the Prophet ﷺ used to say after the prayer. Learn a new one. If you don't know it yet, write it out. Or if you're a slacker like me, take a snapshot of it. And just open your phone and just read it out till you've learned it. It's good to write it out yourself, but if you don't know how to write, take a snapshot and read it. Learn the meanings. Dua, the general rule of dua is mutlaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ رَبُّكُمْ أُدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Your Lord has, your Lord affirms, call upon me, I will answer you. So dua is mutlaq, is general. You can make dua at any time, in any way. Right? It's best to utter the dua, but in prostration is particularly praiseworthy. But after the prayer is very praiseworthy. Anytime you feel need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make dua. Anytime you find a difficulty, make dua. Anytime you do the good, make dua, particularly for acceptance. So, they say whoever said, "Man futiha lahu babu du'a, futiha lahu babu al-qabul." Whomever the door of asking Allah opens, the door of divine acceptance opens. So ask. And Allah loves to be asked. Like, someone keeps asking us, we get annoyed. But Allah loves to be asked, said the Prophet ﷺ, and He hates not to be asked. So the Prophet ﷺ said, so if any of you has any need, they should ask Allah, even if the strap of your sandal breaks. Ask Allah. And of course, and then take the means. Any other questions, Sean?
May I add something to that? Sheikh Faraz has a series he did on seekers. I think it was Adab of Dua. Because one of the things I found personally is when you know the merits of dua, when you know its adab of, how to ask with etiquette, that we begin our dua. There's certain etiquettes that are just going to bring us closer and closer. And the Sheikh, in teaching that, if you watch that series as part of what we spoke about earlier in the beginning about Ramadan and seeking knowledge, you'll find a sweetness and a type of enjoyment in your ibadah by spending some time to learn those fada'il. Like he recommended, mashallah, a very big book. But there's smaller ones that he has taught that you just look at it's numbered, and then you follow that adab and you keep it up. You learn the meanings of it as you read the Arabic, for example. And the Sheikh has done a very good job on that. And that will help you to really enjoy dua. Because at times there are things you should ask for, but there are things Allah knows you need that you don't know what you need. So you keep it general, you leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He knows what you need more than. So avoid that specific things, but asking in general. Watch that inshallah, because these things will help. Because there's not much in English that's so great. The Sheikh goes through the Arabic.
Sorry, did you answer the part of what you could say to amplify the dua, or if there's
What?
certain du'as you should make during Ramadan?
Yeah. So what you can do to amplify the dua? I mean, a few were indicated there. The greatest thing to amplify the dua is to feel deep neediness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? To feel deep neediness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the greatest. In fact, the feeling of neediness to Allah is the heart of the dua. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ad-du'a mukhul ibadah." Dua is the essence of worship. So how is dua the essence of worship? Because what is dua? Dua is an expression of need. Right? It's expression of neediness. We imagine dua to be asking Allah for something. And the ulama said, beware of bad adab with Allah when you ask. Why? Because you are not reminding Allah that, oh, Allah, I have an exam coming tomorrow, make me pass. Like, does He not know? Which is why some of the early Muslims wonder, why do we make dua then? If Allah knows and He's merciful, why should we make dua? Say, no, we make dua because Allah has called us to make dua. The Prophet ﷺ has called us to make dua. Said, but Ibn Ata'illah said, never imagine that your later asking was the means of His earlier giving. Because He chose to give you an eternity. Your dua to Allah can be an accusation to Him. Ibn Ata'illah says, طَلَبُكَ مِنْهُ اتِّهَامٌ لَهُ. You're asking Him can be an accusation of Him, saying, oh Allah, by the way, by the way, provide for me too. Like, right, when Allah says, there's nothing in the heavens or on the earth except that it is upon us to provide for it. So you're not reminding one who forgets. Right? Rather, our dua is an expression of neediness to Allah with certitude. So those are the two key inward adab. One is absolute neediness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that's the wasful ubudiyyah, the state of slavehood to Allah. The second is complete certitude in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba." Call upon Allah with complete certitude in His answer. Because Allah says, "Ud'uni astajib lakum." Call upon me, I will answer you. Which is why Ibn Ata'illah Secondary said in his hikam, متى أطلق لسانك بالطلب فاعلم أنه أراد أن يعطيك. That whenever Allah loosens your tongue to ask, know that He has willed to give you. And the Prophet ﷺ said in that vein, that let none of you ever say, I called upon Allah and He did not answer me. Why? Because Allah will grant you either what you asked for, or better than what you asked for, or the like of what you asked for, or He'll store it up as reward for you. And it's come in another hadith that a servant will come on the day of resurrection and he'll see mountains, or they will see mountains of reward for things that they had never done. So they'll ask, "Oh Lord, what is all this reward?" So this is the the answer to all those du'as that were not answered in this life. The servant said, Ya Rab, I wish I had no dua that was answered in this life. Right? So never have doubt how it is. It may be that he'll shield you from greater harm that you didn't know. Right? So don't have that. Like, have complete certitude. And you don't know what's better for you. You don't know what's better for you. Right? Sometimes, we ask Allah that, oh Allah, enable me to be respectful to my parents. And you mess up. You made dua because you have a fraught relationship with your parents. You go to your parents and you got mad at your parents. So, but I made dua. You don't know what's better for you. Abu Madian said, انكسار العاصي أحب إلى الله من صولة المطيع. The brokenheartedness of the sinner is more beloved to Allah than the haughtiness of the obedient. Okay? Like, imagine two people went in. Zubayr and Zubaydah both have troubled relationships with their parents. They grew up next to each other. 47 and 45. Both went into their parents' home. Both made dua, oh Allah, and they got married, but parents don't get along. So they both went to their house. So they both made dua together. Oh Allah, enable us to be good to our parents. They went up. Zubayr got into a fight with his parents. Zubaydah was really nice to her parents. But what happens? It was a brief visit. Both left. Zubayr leaves brokenhearted. Said, oh Allah, forgive me, make me improve. And he comes out brokenhearted. Zubaydah's like, yeah, I did it. They're so happy with me. I'm so awesome. And like, she goes out like, I'm the superhero of my Islamic story. Right? I'm so great. In that moment, whose state is better with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Zubayr, who's broken-hearted with Allah, or the one who's haughty, I am so great? Okay? So things aren't always as they appear to be. Right? Sometimes we struggle, and that struggle is blessed if we turn to Allah in it. Right? And sometimes we develop bad habits, for example. And that's one of the best things to ask Allah, to be broken-hearted for the sake of Allah. But broken-hearted and completely content. Okay? Completely content. That we're broken-hearted because we're falling short, but completely content because we're asking the most generous. Okay? So Ramadan is a time to turn. Right? And Ibn Ata'illah said, لا تتعدى نية همتك إلى غيره فالكريم لا تتخطاه الآمال. Let the resolve of your intent never turn to any but Allah, because even the highest of hopes cannot outstrip the most generous. Right? You can't seek anything from Allah that's too much. You can't say, oh, that's too much to ask. Of what's worthy of asking. So we ask Allah for facilitation. Any other questions, inshallah? One thing that is an important thing to make the most of in Ramadan is the opportunity for i'tikaf. And there are different levels of i'tikaf. One sunnah i'tikaf is to make i'tikaf of the last 10 nights of Ramadan in full. And that's something that you should aspire to do at some time in your lifetime, and to plan it in advance. If you didn't have it in mind already for this year, it may be difficult. But if it's facilitated, consider it. But the other type of i'tikaf is any time you enter the masjid, intend the i'tikaf for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that general recommended sunnah is particularly recommended in Ramadan. So if you go for Taraweeh to the masjid, or some evening, nobody invite you become a certified freeloader, a CFL. You're really good at finding out who has an iftar in your family or in your circle of friends, and you show up. Tonight you had nobody. You went to the masjid and they just had samosa, dates, and water. So it's okay. So you're in the masjid. So you might as well stay there till Isha. What are you going to do? Intend the i'tikaf. And spend that extra time in the masjid and there's great merit in it, right? And this is something to cultivate. You have some Saturday morning, you don't know what to do, just go to the masjid, intend the i'tikaf. There's great reward in it. Now, women have a particular, just let me. Women have a particular opportunity, which is that women can intend i'tikaf in their designated prayer space at home as well. At any time you're going to be praying there, intend the i'tikaf as well. In Ramadan or outside Ramadan. So some morning, you're working from home, or you're just home. You have 10 minutes. You can sit there at the times of prayer or any other time and intend the i'tikaf. Men can't do i'tikaf at home, right? But it is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to have some place at home that is your designated place of worship, the musalla of one's house. You don't have to make it fancy or whatever. It's best that it be free of distractions. You can actually fold it up too. Many of us have compact homes, and the Sahaba did too. Right? The Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidah Aisha describes that the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes when he'd pray at night, she would deliberately stretch her feet so that when he went into sujood, he'd have to move her legs away because she wanted that contact with him. She was, but their house was so small that she couldn't stretch in her sleep and him pray because they're so small. The Prophet, Sayyidah Aisha's home, which is actually a room, it wasn't a home. So that's an opportunity to have a designated place of, where one prays, and to use that time. I mean, men can also for ibadah, for reflection, but does not count as the sunnah, the recommended sunnah i'tikaf. That's something to make the most of, right? And just to close in that idea of reflection in Ramadan, Ibn Ata'illah Secondary, who wrote one of the greatest summaries of Islamic spirituality. It's called the Hikam, the aphorisms of Ibn Ata'illah. We have a podcast with a dear friend of mine, Sheik Bacchus, on the aphorisms in episode 120 something, covers when Ibn Ata'illah, it is 200 something aphorisms. When he compiled it, there's short, wise statements. His own teacher, Abu al-Abbas al-Mursi, said, "My dear son, you have summarized the Ihya of Imam Ghazali and added to it." It's one of the greatest summaries of what is the essence of the teaching of the Quran and Sunnah. It's an amazing work. He says, "ما نفع القلب شيء مثل عزلة يدخل بها ميدان فكرة." That nothing benefits the heart like a little seclusion in which the heart enters the vast plains of reflection. And his expression is very clear. مَا نَفْعَ الْقَلَبِ مِثْلَ عُزْلَةٍ. And this indefinite is to make it small. Nothing benefits the heart like a little seclusion. Have some moments for your Lord in your day. Right? The prayers, make it a moment of aloneness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, and Allah is most generous. A few moments, it's like one of the poets describing what it means to know Allah. He said that the knowledge of Allah being like a life-giving nectar. He said that it is so powerful that it's a metaphor. It's not meant literally. Like, don't go to the graveyard and try this out. It won't work. Because it's a metaphor. That if they sprinkled a few drops of it on the grave of a dead person, their soul would return and they would have full strength. Right? That this is this idea, this connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most precious thing that we have in our lives, and cultivate that in Ramadan. Barakallahu ta'ala fikum for your attendance, and jazakallahu khair to Imam Yamams and the organizers here as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitate for us true turning to Him, and that He grant us mercy and grant our parents and our teachers mercy, and grant the ummah of the beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam mercy, that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we be embodiments of mercy, that we be vehicles of mercy for His creation, that we have concern for the good of all Allah's creation in every way we can, and that we be of those who convey the good, both religious and worldly, in every way we can, that we have that prophetic concern by which our beloved Messenger ﷺ asked for all good that he was aware of and not aware of, short-term and long-term, direct and indirect, and that we have that prophetic concern whereby our beloved Messenger ﷺ sought refuge from all harm, personal and general, religious or worldly, direct or indirect, in every way. Ya Rabbil Alameen, we ask you, O Allah, that you facilitate all the ways of good and make us reach Ramadan and grant us the best of Ramadans for us and for the ummah of your beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa salli wa sallam wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Barakallahu fiikum.